Up next on Inside the SCCA, the sim game, when it's not necessarily a game. Welcome to episode 222 of Inside the SCCA, presented by RaceSchool.com. I'm Brian Bielanski. Great show ahead. Our guest for this week, we're talking about sim racing. Our guest is none other than Beanz Forster. I asked you before we got started, does anybody call you Ben? How you doing, Beanz?
Pretty good, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. It's great to have you. Welcome to the show. We're going to get started here with the same way we open every show. You're a first-time guest, so you get the first question that everybody gets. How did you get mixed up in this sport that we love?
It's funny because I'm kind of thinking about that all week. And I was born and raised in Connecticut, so being close to Lime Rock and Stafford Springs, I'd kind of go up there and watch races every now and again. But growing up, I wasn't really like a big motorsports person.
Sure.
Early in my life, I was more of a car guy, always like seeing the Fast and Furious movies and wanting to wrench on cars and own cars myself. So it wasn't kind of until high school when I was watching the 06 X Games.
Okay.
And Colin McRae, Travis Pastrana were going, and Colin McRae was up by like a 3/4 of a second, and then rolled the tire on the last jump coming down on the landing, and then only lost by like 3/4 of a second. And I was kind of amazed, and that's when motorsports really kind of reeled me in, and I was like, this is cool stuff. This is stuff I want to do.
How did you turn that into actually becoming a participant?
Well, I never really knew how or where to go to kind of learn where do I start.
Right.
Until I joined the Marine Corps, and when I got to my first duty station here in Eastern North Carolina, Cherry Point, the Single Marine Program helped sponsor the NCR region of the SCCA's Autocross. So,
cool.
They used a decommissioned part of the flight line where they do motorcycle training courses for the Marines.
Got it.
And that SCCA would come on in, set up cones, and we'd do our autocross thing. And it was probably like 2 months after I first got to my duty station. And I'm like, I got a WRX wagon. Let me give this a shot. This will be fun.
Yeah.
And I was hooked ever since.
Now, was this in North Carolina?
Yep. So this is I've kind of almost been in North Carolina for probably the past 10 years or so. Did a little 2-year string of work up in Vermont, but I've basically been here doing autocross on and off for like since 2012, really.
Got it. Any other Marines participating with you there?
Yeah. So some Marines would. That's how I made a lot of friends. Kind of. Car guy thing turned into doing the autocross thing, and they kind of mixed very well together.
Yeah.
Anytime I would talk to people who didn't really know about it, they'd be super interested and be like, "Oh, it's like $60 for 2 days. Sure, let me come on down." And then they come on down and just get hooked to it.
It really is the best bang for your buck when it comes to motorsports, especially if you have a car already in the driveway that can double as an autocross car. There's really no better way to get involved.
Yeah, it was really cool because I never had to really worry about like hitting a wall or hitting something to really damage the car. The worst you're going to do is hit a cone, make some black marks, and then clean it off a little bit later.
Right. And what did that lead to from that? You've been doing autocross. Have you done any wheel-to-wheel stuff?
Yeah, so autocross was just kind of like where I kind of really thought like, okay, this is something like I can reasonably do, being in the military and everything, and kind of not making a whole lot of money. So it fit the wallet, and it kind of gave me um, the little seed
Right.
of I kind of want to do more, and then but that didn't really happen for a long time. Um, I first got into the sim stuff just before COVID kind of kicked off, and my son was 3 years old, and he wanted to go see race cars
Hmm.
for his third birthday. So we took a family trip, being so close to VIR. We went up there for IMSA
Okay.
in 2019, and Lexus had two sims up with they were playing Gran Turismo on it, and that was the first time I ever sat down in the sim. So um, that was about 6 years ago, and then
Sure.
I got home the next weekend and bought a $100 wheel off Facebook Marketplace, and then it was all downhill from there.
It's funny. Your kid was 3 years old. I actually avoided sim racing because my kid was young, and I thought if I get into this, I am gonna so hooked, and I'm going to get divorced because my wife will want me to spend time with my kid and I'm going to be in the sim. So I held off for years until during COVID. But when we got to COVID, my kid was, oh gosh, what, 13, 14 at that point in high school. So, most of the hard part of raising a child is done at that point. At least I thought. I guess the hard part never ends. But
Kind of hard.
but more time was available. You didn't have to chase after a little one running around, and so I've came to it really late. Have you had a chance to go do any wheel to wheel besides autocross?
Yeah. So thanks. So doing the full sim stuff, and running the Spec Miata League that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I met so many different people in the motorsports world and SCCA,
Yeah.
really. And so everybody there, the full Sims team, all the league members, everyone kind of helped give me the resources to go and do this.
Right.
I had so many questions. I've even prior to the kind of really getting into the full sim stuff. I tried reading through the GCR, and I was like, I don't know what really any of this means. Like, I don't have anybody I can just ask simple questions to, but everybody there is kind of giving me little pieces of information
Yeah.
um, that I was just kind of nervous to really ask her. I didn't know who to ask, and like just in terms of buying safety equipment alone.
Right.
But it got me down to Sebring last June, and I rented a car from Paul Roney at RSR
Uh huh.
in Central Florida, and did my SCCA driver school.
How'd that go
Um,
for you?
that was great. So much fun. And,
Yeah.
going into the weekend, I didn't realize how much seat time and how many sessions I was going to get in the car,
Yeah.
and it kind of blew me away. I was hooked.
Yeah.
And then to top off the weekend, we directly following the driver school, the Central Florida region puts on a 90-minute enduro afterwards.
Right.
So me and one of the league admins, Jim Friedhofer, co-drove together, and we actually ended up winning Spec Miata class at the CFR Enduro last
That's
year
awesome.
for my first race too. And I was blown away. I never even would have expected something like that to happen.
Yeah. It's all downhill from there.
I know. Yeah, it's not going to happen. There's a lot of quick people in Spec Miata.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Very cool. Very cool. It's funny you mentioned that you found us on a military base. The connections between SCCA and the military are really strong. Back when SCCA first started, a lot of their first road races were held on military bases, and they would take and shut down the tarmac at a Air Force base, Air Reserve base, whatever. Set up cones, set up hay bales to tell people where to go, and it wasn't autocross; it was actually road racing. and then they started making purpose-built racetracks. But one of the founders of the SCCA, and I don't remember which general it is or admiral, but he is an SCCA Hall of Famer. I probably should have this in the back of my head, but and there's always been a long-standing connection of military members and racers. So thank you for your service. Appreciate that. But yeah, that connection is strong. So we talk about sim racing a lot on the show. It's a question whenever I hear someone mention they spend time in the sim, I kind of dig into it with them. And it's, road racers, especially older guys like me, have a love-hate relationship with the sims because a lot of the young folks, they started in a sim. They didn't start in a car. So the sim was their first thing. They got very good at it fast. Guys like me who started in a car and then go to the sim, we have a harder time adapting because it just feels different. How did you manage? Because I guess you went autocrossing, then simming. How did you make it all work?
Well, the doing the autocross was kind of my first experience of like ever pushing a car to its limits.
Mm-hmm.
Having a WRX and growing up in New England, I'd find myself in a snowy parking lot
Mm-hmm.
one day too. So, but between the autocross and the sim, the autocross gave me kind of like that physical feeling.
Right.
But when I was doing the autocross, I never really focused on like the hows and the whys to like what the car's doing, what's understeer, what's oversteer. Um, Even when I was kind of doing the autocross, I was still really learning at that point. Like what I was just kind of having fun, but I don't know what all these feelings are and how to kind of go faster with them.
Right.
That didn't really come until I started doing all the sim stuff because I can just have so much more time
Yeah.
to sit down and just understand like these concepts of why these cars go fast and how to make uh, cars go fast and what's the difference between them all because they're definitely not all the same.
Right. Right. I grew up in Wisconsin, so in Wisconsin, when the snow comes, the lakes freeze over, and one of the first things mom and dad would do would take your kid out to the lake, and hopefully they've waited for it to freeze over enough. But that's how I learned how to do, a little car control, get the car to go and get out of control and turn into the spin and all that kind of stuff. So I think we all have an advantage, those of us who grew up in the northern climates, to play around like that. But yeah, it's hard to get that experience of, letting a car get right to the limit and then go past it and then come back in a safe manner. And you can do that in a sim in a very low risk reward situation, because if you ball up a sim, obviously you've cost yourself nothing. When you applied that to autocross, because this is an interesting, because none of the mainstream sim platforms have autocross on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you make one work to the other to help you learn more for the autocross?
Well, let's see. It's kind of goes back to the understanding the concepts.
Right.
Like being in the sim, I was able to get so much seat time and really kind of play around with kind of the understeer, the oversteer, and
Mm-hmm.
slip angles. And in the sim, I can kind of just get a better understanding and a better grasp of what that is supposed to feel like, at least on the sim side, and kind of how to detect it. Because like with the sim, you have your hands. Sometimes you have other devices to give you kind of external feelings, whether it be motion or tactile transducers. But in all reality, it's your kind of three main points is your hands and the steering wheel, your eyes, and then the sound.
Right.
So starting to hear tires squeal, or starting to feel kind of the wheel get loose or want to pull a different way. And then just the subtle hints when you're looking in the sim, a little twitch of like, I'm not expecting the car to go that way. Maybe the car's going to do this. And so um, I kind of learned like, oh, when you're going oversteer, the back's going to come around. So you're going to kind of look more into the corner and then because the neat thing about Cherry Point is being on an old military base, the autocross courses are huge. It's not a tiny parking lot.
Right.
Like you're going down the flight line a good ways, and generally at the end there's a very long sweep, and so that's probably one of the good areas I would always try to focus on because hey, there's always going to be a big sweeper at the end of these autocross courses, um, and I can kind of learn what the car's doing using the sim,
Sure.
and yeah, so they do go hand in hand a little bit. It's not I wouldn't say it's like a one-to-one kind of direct comparison, but the subtleties and the nuances and what you're supposed to feel, um, it does. I think it does a fairly good job at trying to mimic that as best as it can.
Cool. Cool. Is there a specific course that you play with on the sim when you're trying to think autocross,
Um,
or a
may I
particular
mean,
car also?
in iRacing, I'm always driving the Miatas.
Okay.
If I'm not driving the Miatas, I'm doing like GT3 stuff for the big endurance races that they have. But
Right.
so I'm always driving a Miata, low power, momentum car, and I would say Sebring does a pretty good job, because especially kind of from what I remember driving on the flight line, it's not flat. I know Sebring's mostly concrete, but um, it's very bumpy on the
Yeah.
flight line, and like you turn 17 at Sebring, there's bumps in the middle of the corner, and then the far end of the course here at Cherry Point, there's a few bumps in the middle of that big sweep at the end there. So there's definitely kind of a lot of things you can take away from
Yeah.
learning Sebring and the different layouts in Sebring that you can kind of apply it to autocross, I guess.
Yeah. I wish there was a plugin for iRacing where people could create autocross courses and, either identical or close-ish identical to a course that's actually happened, or just build a course and go play on it. I suspect that's a programming nightmare for iRacing.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool, but that does sound like a headache.
It does. It does. What's the most important or the easiest translation between, because we haven't talked about using sim racing as an autocross tool because there are no autocross courses. So when you're trying to practice as an autocross tool, what are you looking for?
Um, let's see. It's kind of just goes back to the fundamentals.
Right.
You understand the fundamentals of what cars can do and should do, and what you got to do to make them faster. Like being able to induce oversteer at certain points in time, and what inputs do you give the car that can kind of um, amplify the understeer and the oversteer, and knowing what does the same for the understeer, so you can kind of learn what habits are not good
Right.
for when you're driving. But the the road racing side, there's definitely a lot more of it
Sure.
because you're driving a laser scan version of the track. When I did the CFR driver school in the enduro, um, I came into the weekend with lots and lots of laps on the club course down there, and so getting in the car, I was just super comfortable for the first time being in a race car on a track. Um, I just felt so comfortable because I knew every corner. I knew kind of where the apexes were. I even knew where the flag stands were
Right.
because they put that in iRacing too. So the only one that's kind of not really there is there was a blue tent by the bridge going down into turn 7. But um, that alone, I think, was just such a huge um, leap in terms of less things that I have to learn
Right.
my first weekend in a race car.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that is how most people use iRacing or any sim when they're trying to use it for a training program, because they can learn, especially if they're going to a new track for the first time, and it's a really great opportunity to get the course layout. Maybe you help yourself by eliminating the growing pains in your first session on track because you don't have to find those flag stations and all that kind of stuff. The harder part, I think, is trying to use it as a tool to really learn how to go faster. And that takes a little more diligence in the way you practice on iRacing, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you want to kind of attack the sim as you would the real car. Because if you start going like 101% on your first lap in the sim, and you keep kind of making mistakes and ending up in the wall and having to reset, like that's a kind of a bad training habit or training scar. And so you gotta take to it like you are actually in a real race car and you're actually racing because you do it so much so often. Like I have probably thousands of hours in the sim, and if I were to go out onto the real racetrack with a real race car, and those kind of training scars bleed over into driving a car, the mistakes there, physically and financially, are just so much greater, um, that you can kind of learn to not develop those bad habits if you take it as serious as you can.
Do you have a regimen that you do? Like I try to make, do you try to make like an hour a day or a certain amount of time that you say to yourself, this is my time to go simming, as if you're training for a triathlon or you're training for a marathon? You get out there and you do your time every couple of days or a couple times a week?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the cool things that we do with the Full Send Sim series is every other Thursday throughout the season we offer coaching and instructions for whoever is running in the league that um, wants to come out and just learn how to race better, and we
Yeah.
can make the front packs a lot more tighter and better broadcasts. But so from putting those on, we kind of do have a kind of a scheduled regimen where it's like, hey, for the first 15 minutes, we're going to go and we're going to kind of just warm up and just get some laps under your belt. And then the next 15 minutes, we kind of spend going through lap guides and walking through, like, hey, what's the quickest? What should you be doing through each of these corners on the track? And then the next hour or so um, is kind of, we let everybody go out and do their thing. And me and some of the other sim coaches will kind of spot check and go around and ask who needs help and just kind of group it together. And then towards the end, I mean, when you're doing races, you only kind of approach the start one time,
Right.
and then you have to wait 30 minutes to an hour, or if you're really racing weekends or months, um, until you get to kind of practice that again. So at the end of our sim group sessions, we always kind of put together mock races, and we
Yeah.
do just green, white, checkers as many as we can until the night's over, to give people that that experience of kind of going through the race starts multiple times over and over, because so many people get really nervous
Right.
at the starts of races, and rightfully so. So why not give everybody more chances to deal with situations like that?
Yeah, now that you say that, there's nothing to stop me as an individual from now. My schedule's weird, so a lot of times all of the iRacing stuff that I want to do, I'm at work. So, but there's nothing to stop me from setting up 5 minute, sessions with AI and just running the same session over and over again to get that pace lap, get to the start, take the green flag, run the first lap or two, and then, wash, rinse, repeat.
No, absolutely. That's kind of something I never even thought of too. Is those AI sessions? I haven't used them yet in iRacing, but yeah, those AI sessions are such a great idea
Yeah.
to utilize for something like that you kind of want to get repetition over and over with.
Yeah, I race with a group every Thursday night when I'm not at work, and we are usually kind of playing around with the car that we're going to drive for the next endurance race that we're going to do. But what we do is we'll do an hour of just driving that car and doing our thing and trash talking our teammates. And then the last 15, maybe half hour, we'll do 2 or 3, 5 or 10 lap races. And not quite the same, but it's kind of that same idea. It gets you into that muscle memory, and we throw the AI in, and that adds another 15 cars to the racetrack, which is a really cool addition to what iRacing does. And some of those AI drivers are maniacs, but you can add the settings as to how aggressive the AI is, and you can change those settings. And when you put it on full on, it's like, get out of their way. They're just going to run you over to get to the front. But I think if you set the AI in the right way, it could become really useful. So, Beanz Forster is here with us here from Full Send Sims, and he is sharing some of his sim racing knowledge. We're going to get into the full send part of this here coming up. Let's take a second. I'm going to take a quick pause so I can thank all the people who help us out here. Of course, it's Inside the SCCA, brought to you by RacingWire.com. Big thank you to all of the people at Race School. They're one of the top schools in the country, based out here in Southern California. They are out at Buttonwillow. Now we have 2 tracks at Buttonwillow, so there's some options for your race school sessions out there. They have a really interesting way of teaching and trying to get you to go faster. So it's great for them and a great opportunity. They also do defensive driving classes, high performance driving as well, in addition to their full SCCA accredited schools. Also, our other sponsors here, we've got Solo Performance Specialties. Dave and his crew out there are awesome in the solo world, and they are at a lot of the Solo National Tour events as well as at Social Nationals. You can also get information and get stuff from them online. They ship. Whenever I need something, I start with them and get whatever I can from Solo Performance Specialties. We've also got Dave Pinterick and Associates, William R. Pinterick and Associates. David Pinterick is one of our SCCAers, drives GT1, Spec MX-5. He is also a financial planner on the business side, so if you need help with figuring out what to do with your finances, he is the guy to go to. Check him out. All of his information and everyone else's are on our show notes here on the show, like always. Also, the official sim racing league of Inside the SCCA is Ray Esports. Stevie Ray is an SCCA member. Most of the people who participate in his races are SCCA members. And when we were talking about AI earlier and getting run over, the cool part about Ray Esports is that most of the drivers, because they're SCCAers, we try to act like it's an actual on-course race, with the idea of not having a lot of contact. So it's a nice option for getting together with a bunch of the folks like, and many of us know each other off the sim as well as on the sim. So that's a pretty cool thing. We all got together a year or two ago at the runoffs for a class picture, Ray Esports class picture at VIR. And it was really cool to put names and faces together and give a little elbow to the guy who knocked you off the racetrack a couple of weeks ago. But it was fun, all in good fun, of course. So check out all of our partners. You can go to our show notes, and all the links to their operations and their businesses are there. And when you go, tell them that you heard about it on Inside the SCCA, and tell them that Brian says hi. So check everybody out. All right, back here on the show, Beanz Forster is here. He is with Full Send Sims. Okay, so how do you go from a Marine who found autocross and went to a race and saw a sim and then bought a $100 wheel to working for one of the coolest sim organizations, sim businesses in the U.S.?
Oh, and a lot of that is from COVID, actually.
Okay.
So the short time before COVID, I kind of got into the sim racing. COVID came pretty quick, and then then a bunch of SCCA racers got together and were like, hey, since we kind of can't go racing for real, let's do it in the sim. And so that's where the SCCA Foundation League came from.
Got it.
And me kind of bugging all the other autocrossers, like, hey, when's this gonna start? When are we gonna start racing again? Kind of led me over to the league. So we would race. At one point, it got to like 5 days a week.
Okay.
And it was wild, the amount of racing that we were all doing. and it was fun. It was fun. It was educational, and we all just had a good time. And yeah, it was a great time and kind of a good addiction
Yeah.
that started.
So what is Full Send Sims?
So Full Sim Stems kind of just started as an idea, Court Schmidt, the owner of Full Send Sims, me and Andrew Benah, well, we would kind of just hang out in the SCCA Foundation leagues, and once the racing was done, like we didn't finish off. We didn't go to bed. We would sit there probably till like 3, 4, 5 in the morning and just like kind of like BS with each other and hang out and just talk about racing and just other random things. But some of the some of the discussions we had came about where it's like, hey, when this whole COVID thing's all over, like it would be a really cool idea to put some sims in the back of a trailer and bring it to a racetrack
Yeah.
and run sims at the racetrack while people are racing. And you rent them out, you give competitors more seat time and
Yeah.
uh, time to practice with their race coach or their crew chief in their ear, standing right behind them, um, just to try and get a little bit more practice and a little bit more edge. And then Court uh, finally he built a trailer, put a bunch of sims in the back, and did exactly that. And it's we've learned a whole lot doing it, and we think it's helped out a lot of people. I went to the Hoosier Super Tour at VIR,
Yeah.
and just wanted to go and kind of take the family up there and make it a little vacation with race cars, and say kind of hi to everybody. A lot of people that run the league and who I've met
Yeah.
strictly through sim racing were up there at VIR, and it's kind of it's crazy to see how many people and how many successful people too I've met doing the sim stuff and grassroots motorsports and professional motorsports too. It's crazy to think that, and I'm so thankful for it.
So, what is the company today? I mean, you started at COVID, you got a trailer, you take it to races. What has the company evolved to since? I mean, COVID's over, and we're now in a different world where you can actually go back to the racetrack and everything. How has the company evolved since then?
So I mean, it's continuing to evolve. Really,
Yeah.
you know, we go from having the trailer with two sims inside of it at the racetrack to now bringing 5, 6, 7, 8 sims to the racetrack and getting more people into the seat and kind of improving the hardware of the sims, because sim racing technology like 5 years ago has been significantly improved since then. And so with how much better the tools have gotten, it's wild and it's changed completely.
Yeah.
Because um, I remember that I was kind of a skeptic at first, and it's like, oh well, there's this fake race car looking thing, and like I'm not gonna have fun until I sat down and actually tried it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is dangerous.
Yeah.
And but yeah, we've got more sims at the racetrack. We build full turnkey simulators. So um, some and some of the things we've talked about on our late night Zoom calls
Yeah.
with the SCCA Foundation League is just that anytime someone bought like new hardware or whatnot, it was always such a pain,
Yeah.
because you buy something and it sometimes doesn't come with a mount, and sometimes you don't have extra hardware, and so it's like all these little tiny nuances and pieces that you got to put together in order to just use the one piece of equipment that you bought. It's almost like fitting parts on a race car.
Yeah.
um, and so by building the full turnkey sims where we set everything up, we uh, we configure everything, we put it all together, and we deliver it to you. And um, stuff like little tiny bits of information that we've spent years on kind of building our own rigs, we kind of provide that in a product to other people. So to take all the nuance and the headaches um, out of building the sim, so you can have more time enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because some of us love to tinker. Some of us like to build our race cars. Some people would prefer to build a race car that's not at the front of the field and do all of that work, because that's almost, sometimes I feel like it's our passion more to build and see our creations do whatever they do on the racetrack. Even more fun for us than actually going out and driving. Not to say that we don't like to drive, but it's kind of the same with the sim racing. You can start with your little wheel like I have attached to a desk, and then you can build it up from there in many different ways to do it, and that can be fun also. But other people, they don't necessarily want to do that. Those are kind of like the arrive and drive drivers. They show up at the racetrack with their helmet and their suit, and they go to their team and they say, "Let's go racing." And you've kind of provide that arrive and drive experience both at the racetrack with your trailer, but also now at home.
Oh, absolutely, and that's actually the perfect explanation for it, because I'm the tinkerer. I like to tinker and build things and make things my own. So um, I remember, so I'm building a spec Miata in my garage right now, and I just got to the point last weekend. Um, Thanks to Tyler Brown at Sneaky Moose Motorsports,
Mm-hmm.
who uh, was able to sell me a spare limited slip differential for the Miata,
Right.
and I was able to bring that back home and put it in the car and put it all together to where now I just need a corner balance and an alignment, and we have a car that the only thing we paid for somebody else to do in the thing is the cage, and that's Josh Schmidt over at Babyface Fabrication.
Yeah.
Um, like I'm the tinkerer, the mechanic, the driver, and my wife actually is a welder and a fabricator
Really?
as well. So yeah, so the transmission notch out panel in the car was done by her, and the tab for the blower motor and a couple little things here and there. She welded the exhaust together, and so we kind of took it and made it a family project. Yeah, the kids will stand there and help me with the zip ties and help me clean stuff up, and um, always find a way to sit down and pretend to be a race car driver in the seat too.
Yeah.
So the tinkering became a family project, and got everybody in the house involved. So it's not just dad doing race car things; it's the whole family.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Was your I'm fascinated all of a sudden about your wife, who's a welder. We don't hear about very many women on the fabrication side of things. How did she get involved with that?
So when we did our stint up in Vermont, we were in Vermont for 2 years. Um, we were working. I was working in Burlington, and about 20 minutes north of that is Vermont Sports Car,
Hmm.
which is home to the Super Motorsports teams for that running the Rallycross stuff and the ARA, American Rally Association. So my wife actually, her dream is to uh, full time welder, fabricator on race cars and do kind of the race car stuff too. So she went to school for welding when we were up there in Vermont, and kind of in the hopes of going to work at Vermont Sports Car and go work on the rally cars.
Yeah.
Um, but then kind of life got a little too expensive up there, and
Yeah.
relocated ourselves back down to North Carolina in the same place I left from.
Well, there's plenty of opportunities for fabricators in North Carolina. There's this little place where they do a couple little race car things there too. So I don't know if she's still doing that, but I bet you there's some opportunities she could get herself into there as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely on the books. We want to kind of move out, either out towards that way or up towards VIR a little bit, and have it to where we can kind of get her into all the motorsport stuff.
Well, and
But
you happen to know a guy who put a cage into your race car,
I do
who's lived in that
absolutely.
world. And I'm a connection guy. I like to get A person to B person and see them make the world happen. So I'm making connections here And Josh is with Babyface Fabrication. He has got a NASCAR background. We've had him on the show and talked a lot about it. So, and it'd be cool. We're doing. I just want to mention for a second. We're doing the show from the new studio, and I've never done it this time of day before. And I think I'm going to have to deal with that sunlight problem because we're late in the afternoon and the sun's coming down. So every show I'm like, okay, that I've got to fix for the next show. So I am very, very hot, as they say in the TV business. And so ignore that for a minute. But all right, so Sims, there is the... take your wheel, attach it to a desk, attach it to a table. The pedals go on the floor. That's the real entry level. There's a lot of world of Sims between that and what you guys do. Tell us a little bit about the options of what I can buy from Full Send Sims.
So Full Send Sims, we're working on putting something together that we can provide as an entire kind of package that we can kind of, if you're the tinkerer, like, hey, we want to give you everything that you need to build your Sims, except we'll take all the headache stuff out and we'll give you everything you need all at one shot. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of have all budget ranges, I mean, we like getting everybody into the sport, and we know that just like motorsports, you can spend a little bit of money here or you can spend a lot of money there. And so everybody's got different budgets, life can get expensive nowadays. So we always have kind of what to get you for
sure.
Whatever kind of budget you have.
Right.
So it's wild. It can go from thousands of dollars to maybe $1,000 or a couple thousand.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of different options.
Everybody looks at what some people spend on sim racing, and they go, I could buy a race car for that much, which is true. But the one cool part about the sim is that if you do it right, you'll never have to buy another one because you're not going to crash it.
I've always looked at sim racing from a kind of the sheer amount of seat time that you can get in it,
right.
And then compare that to the cost of what it was, and then the cost to maintain it is it's significantly cheaper than an actual race car.
No question. And the cool part about a sim rig is the rig part of it is not necessarily the technology that changes over time. Most of the technology that changes is in the wheels and the pedals and that kind of stuff, and maybe the monitors. And you can upgrade that within your sim without having to go to necessarily a new rig. So it is kind of timeless, the rig part, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. The chassis, and again, one of the things I learned kind of building my own is that, like when I was initially building mine, the chassis, I was like, oh man, that's kind of expensive, but what do I get out of it? It's just, you just put stuff on it. But once I actually kind of was able to afford my chassis, which is made of extruded aluminum, so it's very rigid and infinitely universal. You want to move something a half inch a little closer to you, a half inch away from you, quarter of an inch, you can make all the slightest amount of adjustments you can to make it as extremely comfortable as you can. So having learned that, I got a solid foundation now, I can do whatever else I want with it. I can put whatever else I want with it, and I don't have to worry about scrapping scrapping a kind of a store big, and then having to build it up with something a little bit stronger.
Sure. I've been looking at sim builds and doing something. I'm the tinkerer, and I've been back and forth between wood and aluminum, and aluminum certainly seems to be the best way to go. There's a cost involved with that, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I built a a stand out of 2x4s. I've progressed my way up to kind of took a seat on every level
Sure.
of equipment. You know, my first wheel that I got was clamped to my entertainment center with the pedals underneath the entertainment center where the consoles go, and then sitting in a camping chair about a couple feet from my 65-inch TV.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'm like, okay, the wife and kids want to watch TV. It's kind of a pain to pull this off the entertainment center
Yeah.
all the time. And so I built a wheel stand out of wood. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I had 2x4 and plywood, and
Right.
it was a little wobbly. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can buy something metal. So I bought
Yeah.
a metal one. And then I'm like, okay, now this kind of doesn't still really do it for me because now I'm sitting on the couch instead of sitting in a camping chair.
Right.
And I want to get into something that kind of connects me to the wheelbase and it's not flying all over the place on me. So I went and bought an actual metal cockpit, and that was made out of like box steel and whatnot. Yeah. And it was okay for me at the time. And then once I started getting used to it, I'm like, okay, this thing wiggles a little bit now that I got a stronger wheelbase on there and stiffer pedals. It's like it did it for me at the time, but now I want to go up. And that was kind of at the point where it's like I've noticing a trend of myself. The stuff I bolt the equipment to is never really like enough, and it always becomes obsolete. So then that's when I started looking at I kind of skipped the whole 2x4 cockpit.
Yeah.
Just went straight to the aluminum because I'm like, you know what? As fun as that was, I don't want to keep doing this, and I want to focus more on the racing and the other stuff. So I went with the extruded aluminum cockpit, and I've had this same cockpit now for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was kind of recently until the past 2 years where now I finally have gotten it to where everything on here is perfectly spaced and it's all adjusted, and I don't have to touch it unless something breaks, which is very rare.
Yeah. I think you can get a 2x4 cockpit fairly rigid and all of that, but the adjustability that comes with the extruded aluminum, especially if you have more than one person who's going to be driving, that's really kind of one of the real big benefits from the aluminum.
Yeah, absolutely. You drill a hole in a 2x4 and you want to move that, you're going to have to move it at least a half inch to get around that screw hole, and then it's a little too much here, a little too little there, and then you got to start from scratch again because you drilled too many holes in
right. Exactly. So does Full Send still do the trailer and going to events? We mentioned when we were getting ready to schedule this that you were heading down to some little thing going on in Miami.
So yes, Full Send still does we still have the sims in the trailer. We also do like corporate events and stuff too. So the sim in the trailer is always going to be that one little thing that Full Send has for forever. We're always going to have sim in a trailer in some way, shape, or form. But yes, we still have the trailer with the sims in it, and we also bring simulators to the track. They were at Sebring, I think 2 weeks ago, and they had a load of sims down in there and running them in the garages.
Yeah.
But yes, we're going to run an event for a car club down in Miami, running simulators for them during the Formula One weekend.
Cool. Is that at the track?
No, it's at their clubhouse.
Got it.
So
very cool. Very cool. So the trailer are the sims where you can just pull up the trailer, plug in the trailer, and they're all in and ready to race, or do you pull them out of the trailer and put them on the outside under tents or whatever?
So I mean, we do kind of both.
Okay.
You know? It depends on how many we're bringing to where and kind of what we're doing. So we had the trailer at the when I did my driver school weekend, we had the trailer there. And so the trailer currently is, think of it as a like an RV camper trailer, a toy hauler thing, where instead of having a golf cart in the back, there's two sims, and then all of the audio and video equipment around the entire back of the trailer. So that's where we keep the two sims in there. It's air conditioning, And then there's a kind of a waiting area in the front where you can sit down on the couch, refrigerator and whatnot, so drinks. So it's kind of definitely a multi-purpose vehicle.
Yeah,
in a sense.
definitely. All right, well, we're getting ready to get to the point where we can wrap this thing up. If people are interested in learning about all the things Full Send Sims does, and maybe even if they need to go buy a sim for the house or the race shop, where do they go?
So we have a website, fullsendsims.com. We also have a Discord channel with all of our drivers and spectators and broadcasters, commentators, anybody or rig owners, anybody who's kind of affiliated with Full Send Sims, no matter how small of a point. It's over there hanging out on the Discord. We also got a YouTube channel,
Nice.
Full Send Sims, where we broadcast all of our league races every Tuesday at 7 during the season, 7 p.m. EST, and we have Greg Kramer and Kyle Heyer doing commentary for us, and they have a great time. We have a great time. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's been a great to be able to catch up, and I've heard the legend of Beanz for a while, and Greg Ginsburg, 5G, my Greg, has told me that I had to get you on the show for a bit, and I know you've done some stuff with Morgan Burkhart, who is my sim coach, and he is. I told him, I said, I'm the best candidate for coaching because I am so bad that you're going to have a great success story with how quickly I make improvements, hopefully. But I've heard great stuff over the years, and I'm really glad I was able to finally catch up and get you on the show. So.
Oh, awesome! It was definitely great to finally meet you. I last when we went to VIR, and Greg asked me to come into the booth. I was expecting you to be there, and I'm like, oh, I can finally kind of really see Brian for the first time. And then I'm like, oh, he's not here.
No, not this year. Yeah, I haven't been to VIR for a Super Tour. I've been there for the runoffs, the 2 times it was there. But the Super Tour, we switch off, as some people realize and some people don't. This weekend, I'm at home and Greg's at Hallett. And next couple of races, I'll be at the racetrack for Portland and for Mid-Ohio and Road America. And Road America is my home track growing up, so I like to try to get there every year and get back and see family and friends. It's a great system that we use, much like what they do for your sim racing announcing. Greg and Kyle are not in the same room together. They're at other parts of the country doing their stuff, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's fun that we've all figured out how to make that work. So, Beanz,
it's cool
thank
what
you.
Technology has given us.
Thank you. Do you have any sponsors or anything you want to thank? Because I know I've got your own race car and everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have sponsors yet, but I'm always down to take money and put it into the race car. But
Very cool.
I want to thank everybody at Full Send Sims. Court Schmidt, Jim Friedhofer, Andrew Benah, Trace Hanch, Josh Bakari, and even Court's dad kind of comes and helps us out every now and again. And then I want to kind of thank everybody who I've met with over the years doing the sim racing stuff, because they've helped me out in terms of improving my performance in the simulator, and they've also helped me out in terms of kind of getting to where I'm at today.
Yeah.
On the racetrack and finally getting to go road racing. So
very cool.
There's a whole lot of people, and I don't want to name everybody because I don't want to forget somebody.
Yeah.
But anybody who I've raced with and just kind of chatted with doing the sim stuff, thank you all. You all have really kind of helped me get to where I'm at today.
That's fantastic. All right, Beanz, don't go away. I'm going to finish up the show. We'll chat afterwards. That's going to do it for another episode of Inside the SCCA, presented by RaceSchool.com. If you like what you saw and what you heard, subscribe to the RacingWire Podcast Network and the Racing Network on YouTube. We have new episodes every week. It'd be great if you leave a comment, especially if it's a good one. We appreciate those. And And, you can make points also, but do it nicely. If you could follow us on social media, that'd be cool. It's at Race Announcer on X. You could also find us all over Facebook and Instagram as well. There's an Inside the SCCA Facebook page. Let's see what else. There's a new Inside the SCCA every week. Again, Inside the SCCA is brought to you by RacingWire.com. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a fantastic week. Stay safe and go play with cars.